I'm joined by Roel Raymond in Sri Lanka. She's the associate editor at Roel Media and former online editor of the Daily News. Roel, welcome to our show. We heard from Sri Lanka's defense minister, who said he believes these were coordinated attacks and one group in Sri Lanka was behind these attacks. What do we know so far about the possible perpetrators and their motive?
Well, there hasn't been any official recognition for any organization or their motives. What we do have is a letter that was circulated on social media and that has been circulating for the last 24 hours or so, which indicated that one religious extremist group was behind this attack. And in fact, the letter had given two names of two names of suicide bombers, and said that there would be several attacks in Sri Lanka in this period. However, the letter was sort of dismissed as being fake news. Several journalists reported that when they contacted government officials, they were told that this was fake news and it wasn't credible information. However, there was a conflicting report when the Prime Minister, much later in the evening, so this was last evening, said that he sort of legitimized the letter by saying that he was not informed of any possible threat to Colombo and other areas of Sri Lanka, and that he would begin an investigation into why the Cabinet of Ministers was not informed of a possible threat. So what I would say is, while there is a lot of talk and conjecture about one religious extremist group being behind these attacks, and definitely it was a coordinated attack, the government has not yet come out and said for certain that this is the group behind the attack, nor has a group made any kind of claim or taken responsibility yet, saying that they are responsible for these attacks.
So, a top police official alerted security officials, according to some media reports, obviously. The security officials were warned that in an advisory that 10 days ago, a threat is happening to churches coming from a radical Islamist group inside Sri Lanka. Do you think the authorities perhaps should have used more precautions?
Definitely. I mean, my view is that if this letter is legitimate, again, we have to. It hasn't been verified yet, because, like I said, there are parts of the government saying that this is not true. It is not. It's just a letter that's been circulated to stir up strife within the country. Let's assume the letter is legitimate, in which case the police and the hierarchy should have definitely been more vigilant. I think there was a serious lapse in security, because I can understand if you don't want to maybe make public the fact that you have received this intelligence, but I would expect then the police to beef up security in major towns, because in anticipation of any possible attack. But none of that happened. And in fact, just last week on Palm Sunday, there was an attack on a church in Anuradhapura. And I mean, if they already had this information in hand and it was followed by an isolated incident like the attack in Anuradhapura, I can't imagine why they wouldn't have taken the necessary steps to ensure nothing of this sort happened. So, assuming the letter is legitimate, then this is a serious lapse in security. And yeah, the Prime Minister is right. There would have to be an investigation to find out why the cabinet was not informed, why there were no adequate measures taken.
So this is apparently one of the largest terrorist attacks the people of Sri Lanka have witnessed in recent memory. What is the mood over there like?
Well, I mean, there's definitely a lot of anguish and sadness. We thought all of this was over 10 years ago. Many of us grew up with the war. We have seen suicide bombings is nothing new to a majority of the older Sri Lankans. So we've seen these things happen, and we thought it was over. And in the last 10 years, we have seen the dividends of peace in some aspects. We have not had any kind of real violence, certainly not suicide attacks or explosions. We were getting over it, getting over the trauma of the war, as it were. And to have this happen is just very sad for many people, because a lot of people expected the newer generation, the younger generation, to grow up without knowing what it was like to have a war or know what it's like to be in the middle of this sort of violence. So it's sort of a regression, and there's a lot of sadness attached to it. Yeah.
Roel Raymond from Sri Lanka, thanks so much for the update.